Hi, this is Brandon Dawson at the B. Dawson Show.
The B. Dawson Show. Here we are. Where are we?
We are in Dana Point, California.
What are we doing in Dana Point, California?
We have 250 of our elite business owners from all around the country, and we have a handful of businesses from around the world here for 3 days to talk about the future and how to create a bigger and more significant impact.
So this B. Dawson Show is going to be a little different than the previous episodes because I would like to ask you some questions. And I am Natalie Workman. I am your fiance / leadership program executive director extraordinaire.
Yes, and thank you for creating such an amazing program.
Well, thank you. Speaking of the program, there's a program that you are going to be launching that a little bird has told me is going to be coming out in April called Structured Success. And in Structured Success, you are essentially piecing together all of the concepts that you've learned and created throughout the course of your 30 years in business to be able to fast track people and give them a structure for success. I'd like to dive into maybe 2 or 3 of those pieces and just give me like a high level overview of what they are and maybe an example where it impacted you or the origin where it was created, just so we can get a little bit of behind the scenes from the course.
Sure. Let me talk a little bit, though, why I've created these elements.
Awesome.
Over the last 25 years of running and coaching and managing businesses and hiring and onboarding thousands of employees on behalf of these businesses, you learn things. And one of the things, as you know, I had a leadership program that I ran hundreds and hundreds of business owners through and key contributors.
Who helped you create that?
You did. That was when 200 videos and assessments, and it was very extensive, a 15-month program. And then it concluded with role plays and face-to-face group role plays and meetings.
And that's actually how I learned all of your content.
That's true. One of the things that I think we both came to realize is it was very deep and very complicated, and it required a person to consume an enormous amount of information, probably a dozen different books.
Yes. That's all I did for 3 straight months was read the books and watch the videos.
And then we spent 6 months shooting the video series, so it's very extensive. My frustration with that, though, is it was so deep that many people missed the little points that could have immediately added value in their business. And they went after the big things that they could draw into. And so as I looked at the impact that was creating or the commitment that people would have to have, it wasn't doing it fast enough. I wanted to have a program that wasn't just a leadership program. It was a way for people to technically move through things that are roadblocks or inhibitors or things that made it harder for them to succeed. And I've been on this pursuit for years. And so in the last year, I wanted to go back and revisit the depth of that program and break it into components where it builds on each previous component. And so you've helped me reformat that, and we'll be launching our first series, Structured Success.
Well, and I have the unique vantage point of being able to know your business content, to know the businesses that you're involved in, but also see how it plays out in day-to-day communications with employees, but also your family and your friends. And one of the key things that I would love to be able to explore more with you is the concept of communication and the filters that you use for creating clear communication and for creating communication that drives something to an objective goal and a stated goal.
Yeah, so I'll never forget, I was with, 15 years ago, I was with one of my mentors that just impacted me more than anybody ever. And that was Hector Lamarck.
Okay.
And he was speaking at an engagement where there were 62,000 people.
Where's
is in Atlanta, Georgia.
Is it like a stadium?
It was a stadium. And
wow.
Hector is his last name's Lamarck. I call him Hector Lamarckable because he's remarkable. And I remember walking with him and some guy saying, Hector, I want to do what you did. How do I do what you did? How do I do it? And Hector stopped and he looked at him and he said, did you make your 25 phone calls yesterday? And the guy started making up excuses. And Hector said, until you make your 25 phone calls every day, each and every day, you'll never do what I did.
Was the 25 phone calls part of his program?
Hector talks about exactly how he built his business. And it started with making 25 phone calls every single day and getting better and better at how you handled those phone calls and being intentional about that until you maxed out your impact on your 25 calls a day. Mm-hmm. And when you've done that, you've learned the art of successfully making 25 calls and getting in front of people. And that's the start of being able to succeed. Mm-hmm. And it triggered something in my mind because at that point I'd already acquired 100-something businesses and franchised 1,000 and done real estate deals in the tens of millions of dollars. So it's not like it's literally not like I couldn't carry my own water, but that moment in time, I never forgot about it. And I asked Hector and he said, look, if you don't start with the little things and you don't perfect the little things, you'll never get to the big things. Mm-hmm. And that's just always stuck with me.
Why are you getting emotional?
Because it's such a little thing. It's so funny. It's such a little thing, but it stuck. Yeah, and it changed me. And
I bet, does he even know that you remember this?
Oh yeah,
he does. Have you told him this? I have a feeling that you say, this is my theory. You say so many things, and there's an abundance of knowledge that comes out of you. It's just fact. It's not my skewed perspective. It's just fact. But people are only ready to hear what they're ready to hear when they're ready to hear it. And at some points you might say something that might not click with somebody. And other times you might not even know that you're saying it or have remembered saying it, but it dynamically shifted somebody's life to where 15 years later they're saying this moment, this thing that you did or said impacted me. So I'm sure he knows that he said that, but I wonder if he knows how much of an impact that specific example has made on you.
I think there is no loss of understanding from Hector at how much I love him and respect him, adore him. He's a beautiful guy.
He is a beautiful guy, and you're a beautiful guy. So let's talk about your process for filtering communication. And yesterday at this meeting that we're at, you did like a 4-hour keynote on this, and it involved lots of pieces of paper, and you had Vanna White behind you writing it. I would like to be able to distill a piece of that information into a podcast and into the video without being able to have those pieces of paper. So what part of that do you think that you could share with your
I think
audience?
The principles. I think first and foremost, the principles. Creating a mechanism for your brain to filter information in real time that allows you to make instantaneous decisions as to where you should put your energy or efforts. And that's what that one comment from Hector, if you can't perfect the little things, you'll never get to the big things because you're not committed. And you don't create the culture of discipline. And it's only through the doing over and over and over and over and the thinking around the impact of your doing that you can modify things in order to get better. And it's through the modification of the very thing you're doing that allows you to become an expert at it and master it. But if you don't make the first phone call and you're not consistent with it, then you'll never get to the big thing, which is mastering it. And if you can't master it, you can't teach others to do it. So that is a logical process that I took from that then, and I've literally created all my businesses around that. And so when I'm communicating with people, I don't need to listen to 20 minutes as to why they're struggling. I just simply need to ask one question.
What is the question?
What is the one thing that you've identified in your business that you have mastered that's caused you to be as successful as you are?
And what type of response how do you base your judgment based off of their response?
Because as soon as they respond and tell me what it is, then my follow-up question that I learned by listening and reading and understanding is, how many people have you taught to master that same thing? And what's been the impact on your business? What's the third question? How many little things in your business could you master to teach others that would take your business to explosive growth?
It's so simple.
It's so simple, and yet people stare at you with a blank look in their face, and they might get through the first question, but they never get through the second question.
Much less the third.
How many people have you specifically and intentfully developed to multiply the impact of what you mastered so your business can breathe and grow effortlessly? And people look at you. You know why? Because they get so caught up in the what they do. And Michael Gerber talks about this in E-Myth. Jim Collins talks about it on a more macro level in big corporations, from good to great, great by choice, how the mighty fall. That there's these little ecosystems that get created in these environments. And if you're an owner of a business, you control the tempo and the messaging in that ecosystem. But if you're not aware of the one thing that you've mastered, that you've taught everybody else to do, then you're not going to be aware of the next thing. It's a cultural situation. If you're highly aware of what you do that makes you great, and you've created a rhythm to do it over and over and over, and you've duplicated it, and you've taught others, and they're able to create the same level of impact or greater level of impact, law of large numbers kicks in, and a culture of incremental improvement, continuous incremental improvement, becomes the standard. When you're running your business start-stop heuristically, so everything is one-off and it's start-stop, and you can't identify one thing you've mastered, and then you can't identify, or if you can do that, then you can't identify how you've replicated that and amplified it by teaching others to master it.
Watching your talk yesterday, you identify or juxtapose heuristic versus algorithmic. Could you define what heuristic is and then what algorithmic is?
So if you're heuristic, everything's a start-stop. It all centers around you. It's always doing something different. It's just, and you're the center of attention, and you have to be there, and you're the most important person, and you're the only one that can do it right, and you're the expert, and you're the best, and blah, 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 blah. It projects their mentality into whatever it is they're doing.
And that's not just business owners, that's leaders of teams.
That's everything.
That's
and
everything.
It's in pockets of organizations that cause fractures in those organizations, which is what Jim Collins talks about in How the Mighty Fall. What causes those things isn't a huge shift in business opportunity. It's usually a shift in the thinking of the people that are responsible to create the business opportunity. And it fractures organizations. And it doesn't take very long when you go into those organizations to understand why everybody's out of alignment. And all you have to do is ask a few questions of the different people to see who's in alignment and who's out of alignment. People that think algorithmically, they think of increments. I do this, and then I do that, and then I do this, and then that happens, and then this happens. And they can articulate each and every step and the importance and significance of each and every step to the conclusion of what you're doing. People that speak or think heuristically talk about non-building block things. They talk about individual performers, or they talk about the need for them to be involved because they've never built a rhythm. And people perform easier and succeed faster when there's a rhythm to everything. And what I was teaching yesterday is a rhythm of thinking and communicating in order to create alignment amongst your teams. And first and foremost, having some basic principles in place that is very easy for other people to follow, because John Maxwell talks about leadership is influence, and it's defined by influence. That's it. It doesn't need a huge definition. You're either a bad leader, a non-leader, or a great leader.
Can you be a good leader?
Yeah, I'm saying though, on the spectrum of you're either not trying to lead, you're neutral, or you're being a poor leader, or you're in pursuit of being a great leader.
Got it. Just wanted to clarify.
It's a good clarification. Leadership is nothing more and nothing less than influence. And to the extent that you can influence people to create a higher impact, a better quality of life, you can create influence for people to strive to their highest levels, you're going to be a great leader. If you're using influence to deter people or to detract them or distract them, you're a poor leader. That's a very easy principle. So I've taken that a step further, and in my own mind, I've said my job as a leader is to make other people's success easier. Because if I'm able to do that, I will collect more followers who will trust me because I'm intentionally making their success or their life easier and more impactful.
And people are looking for that in today's world. There's a lot of content out there of how you can live a better life and achieve your goals. But when it really comes down to it, it's a one-to-one relationship of you as a leader telling me as somebody who wants to achieve something greater, I can help you do this. I can show you how you can achieve these things. It's not just the onus is on me. I have to do the work, but I think what's so pivotal about your philosophy around this and something that's greatly impacted me is your ability to say, I'm going to show you how you can do this and how you can achieve more and how you can live your dreams, not just by telling you it's possible. Like, I'm going to give you an example that this is possible. You can choose not to listen to it, but I'm going to show you that it can be done.
It's a rhythm. You can immediately go into almost any environment and understand why people either are struggling or succeeding. Everything's energy. And intentionality as to what you're doing, why you're doing it, who's doing it, when they're doing it, how many more people can do it, and how can we do it better. That's a way of thinking and existing. And if your environment isn't that, then what is your environment?
And how do you change it to create that kind of environment? Because that takes a significant amount of leadership. And if you've already given up your ability to influence, if you're in the neutral or if you're even in the bad, there is a lot of work to be done to pull yourself and your team and your culture. But once you define, like, this is the stake in the sand, this is where we're going, don't you find that it just makes everything easier?
Yeah, and it's actually really easy to teach somebody to switch, to flip that switch. The first thing to understanding when you walk into any environment or any dysfunctional team is it's a direct representation of you.
Scary. For a lot of people, that's terrifying.
It's a fact, though. How you are viewed inwardly is what you project outwardly, and it's how you view yourself.
And the people that you've attracted into that environment, you've attracted.
They're yours.
Like,
you own
scary.
it.
You can blame
You
your
own it.
employees.
You know, I have sat through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of role plays with business owners who are victimized or handicapped by their employees. And it always lands on, why'd you hire them then? And why do you continue to hire them?
And why are you not firing them?
And why aren't you either not firing yourself or firing them? I've had business owners that have shown up to work, had their company cars stolen and driven out to the desert, and all 14 or 18 staff members gone. I've had business owners that have done incredible things thinking they were doing the right thing and they were doing the wrong thing. So at the end of the day, your culture or your environment, and this is true if you're a division leader in a company, if you're a VP in the company, if you're the owner of the company, or if you're your own owner of your own business. There's three ways to view people and environments: transactionally, transitionally, or transformatively. And if you use that lens and you just simply talk to people and you listen to them, you will know what the thinking is in that environment and culture.
What of those three do you want? What's good, what's bad?
You want them all. You want the positive attributes of everything. See, transactional thinking is very granular and it's repetitive. Transitional thinking, you have to live in transition to improve. And transformative thinking means you're driving to something much bigger, much greater than where you're at today. But you should be able to articulate that. And you have to be able to articulate how you're moving through those 3 different words. I call them the 3 T's. And let me give you an example.
Transactional,
transitional, transformative. And that's actually the process you go from wherever you're at to wherever you could dream of being. You have to go through all 3 of those T's because it starts right now.
Oh, so that's why you're saying that none of them are bad. It's not like you avoid one and you try to create the other. Like you have to go through. It's almost a process. Would you say it's cyclical?
Yeah. So go back to Hector's comment. How many calls did you make today? If I want to have a business that's generating $10 million of revenue, and I know I need 20 people doing the very thing that I'm not doing today, which is 25 phone calls. If I don't perfect the 25 phone calls, I can't perfect the next thing that allows me to get to the next level.
Makes a lot of sense.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So people that are moving through that, they're in transition because they're moving from learning to do something to moving to doing it better and then learning to do something else. And it adds and adds and adds. And then you can be Hector and you can tell everybody, here's exactly what I did. Here's exactly what I said. Here's exactly how I said it. Here's the exact result that I got. And if you just do that and master it, you'll succeed faster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
People who live in transitional mode, there's 1 or 2 kinds of people. You have the people who are in transition while they're in pursuit of mastery, and they understand it's part of the journey and they can accept it. It's uncomfortable. They make themselves even more uncomfortable because change and growing is uncomfortable. But they can articulate, I'm in a point of transition. I'm pushing on the threshold of learning and developing. I'm uncomfortable doing it, but I'm doing it for a purpose, which is to get to the bigger picture of creating a business that's $10 million with 20 people doing what I'm doing today. Okay. The people that live in transition, that use transition as a defer and deflect, it's so easy to hear that because it sounds like this. We've tried that before and it didn't work. I'll wait and see what happens.
Give me 2 years.
Give me a couple years.
I'll try it when I see it.
There's always something other than accountability in that conversation. It's either somebody else's fault or the market's not right or you don't understand my business. So people that live in transition like to live there because there's no accountability. And where there's no accountability, you don't need discipline.
Well, and they're not committed.
Someone
who's committed. We were recently just at a conference that we talked about on the podcast a couple weeks ago. Commit first, figure the rest out later. Like commit to doing something new, commit to creating the growth that you're looking for, commit to setting a target, commit to developing a skill, and then figure it out.
If you're moving to transformation, the only answer is yes. But I'm not as successful in the 25 calls that you have mastered, so I want to learn how to be better. Okay, how are you making those calls? What are you saying in those calls? What are people saying to you? Have you mastered the 25 or 30 overcoming objections or mastering objections? Have you watched the video? Have you role played it 1,000 times over? And if the answer is no, then you know what the problem is. You don't need to be a surgeon and you don't need an MRI machine to understand what the default or the defect is or what the problem is. It immediately comes out of your mind and then instantaneously you can tell what the issue is.
Right.
Because it's all about the point of focus. Teaching people the 3 T's, transactional, transitional, transformative. Teaching them the positive aspects of the 3 T's. And then teaching them what to listen for, but most importantly, how to communicate it so others can easily understand why they're doing what they're doing. And if I sat down with you as an employee and I said, the reason I'm bringing you into the organization today, Natalie, is I want to grow the organization to $10 million. Today, it's just me doing it. I've been mastering everything I've been working on. Now I have to master teaching somebody else. I'm not going to be very good at it because I've only always focused on myself, and I know how I succeeded and the things that I did to succeed. Now I have to transfer those to you. So now I'm moving into transition because you're the first person of the 20 that I'm going to actually duplicate all the best results of everything I've ever done. Now here's the beautiful part. You're going to get a lot of me. Here's the bad part. You're going to get a lot of me. But what we're going to do is we're going to conquer this which means when I'm able to teach you the results that I've been able to accomplish, you're going to be the first person I taught to do that, which means you have a head start. So if I want to engage you now, I'm going to move you to transformative. So Natalie, imagine coming into an organization where you perfect everything that I've learned to perfect. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm going to give you the shortcut on how to do it. Once you've mastered that, I'm going to teach you to do what I just did with you, which is to train others to do it. And when I get to where I have 20 employees who have all mastered what I've mastered, you're going to be one of the top employees, or maybe you become a business partner, or maybe you move to a new market, we joint venture together, and we start the whole process over because that's your opportunity. So Natalie, when you come here today, there's no reason for you to ever leave here because we're just going to get bigger and bigger and better and bigger and better and bigger and better. And there's no rules about how big and how much better we can get.
You're saying this in a very confident way, and I would like to acknowledge and pull out of the way that you're saying this. You are also, if you were having this conversation, which I've heard you have with a multitude of new employees and team members that join our organizations, when you talk to them and you're saying what you're saying, you are being incredibly humble while still being confident. You're saying, I'm not certain that I know everything right now. I know how to do my thing, and I'm going to be by your side helping you do the thing that I know how to do well. And I've never created 20 salespeople or 20 people who know how to answer the phone. But you and I, once we figure out the first way, we're going to duplicate it. And it simplifies the whole process of growing when you boil it down to these terms. But you have to, as a leader, and the thing that you do incredibly well is acknowledge where you might not know something that is going to come your way. And then it takes away all of the pointing of fingers and the blaming when in those moments you might not exactly know what to do. You're figuring it out.
Yeah. So my job, if I'm moving to transformation, is to create confidence in everyone that I need to move me to that transformation, whatever that might be. It's my sole job. And
you would say that your sole job is to create confidence in the team members and the customers and the members that you work with.
That's right. Create the highest level of confidence, because then people will trust you, they'll follow you, and they'll execute on your ideas and concepts. I know that that's all I need to know. I don't actually need to know anything else, because I'm going to surround myself with people who are moving from transactional through transitional to transformative to accomplish an objective. And if they're dedicated people and they're hardworking people, the more of them I have surrounding me, the more and faster we can conquer problems, because we have more perspective and view on it with more people pushing to do it. So once I call it the power of three. Once I have a view of three people doing the same thing, somebody's going to be out executing somebody somewhere. And if you just simplify your business and break it into three buckets: flow, conversion, retention. How are people coming in? What are you doing with them when they come in? And how are you keeping them?
So define flow.
How you're attracting whatever you're attracting for whatever you're doing.
How you're attracting your customers.
Your customers or your employees.
Okay. And then
everything.
You said flow, and then there's conversion.
Conversion. How effective are you at getting them to do the thing at the highest value?
So it's getting people into the funnel. The top of the funnel is flow.
Yep.
Then you go to conversion. And then the last one was retention. So maybe it's not a funnel. Maybe it's cyclical.
It is cyclical, because the more you're good at retention, the more you increase future flow, right. The higher you convert.
Because you're retaining the customer because they had a good experience.
Or your employees, which is why my average employee, I started the business 15 years ago, and 70% of my executive team have been with me between 9 and 15 years. And they are absolute experts in their area of expertise.
And they're fabulous people.
And they're fabulous people. But we have created a culture of continuous incremental improvement and leaning into other smart people to conquer problems that we've encountered while we're trying to grow. But it's our culture. And nobody can come into our culture and say they have all the answers, because I'm the highest lid in the organization and I don't have all the answers. And if they had all the answers, they wouldn't be coming to work for me. So giving everybody permission that we can only all be our best when we're at our best, and pushing as hard as we can as a team. And when we encounter opportunities to get better or to do something to improve, that's the golden nugget. We're all trying to find those little things. And so having a standard, I call it the magnitude of impact scale, which you helped me create. It's a layer scale between poor, average, good, great, excellent, and remarkable. And I layer everything through that lens.
Did you say remarkable or lamarkable?
Lamarkable. But I filter.
Bad joke.
But here's the point. You asked me about structured success. What I'm teaching, it's like taking a pair of glasses. I have bad eyesight, so when I take my glasses off, I can't read anything. Everything's blurry. Okay, and I have to strain.
You should watch him try to turn his alarm off in the morning. It's painful.
And I have to strain to see. So the analogy I'm giving here is I'm putting my lenses so I can see. I'm loaning them to you as a business owner.
I like that.
So you're looking through your dirty lenses or no lenses, and you have poor vision potentially in some area or elements of your organization. And I'm just loaning you my glasses so that you can see more clearly what you're trying to see or find, and give you the structure on how to move through those things so that you're not expelling unnecessary effort. Or more importantly, and this will be a different podcast, this is what the private equity groups really like to see. They like to see business owners that grow to a certain level and then run into struggle because they've outscaled themselves. They're trying to expand. They're adding new people. They're going into that transitional mode that they aren't experts in, and they actually devalue their company. Then they get nervous. Then they go get money. And then the private equity guys say, great business, here's extra money. Go buy the resources you need. Go build the technologies you need. And then they do it. But the same thing that got them into that place in the first place never got fixed. So they spend the money, and now they've given up the other half of their business because the growth that they were supposed to have didn't happen. And now the private equity group gets to cram down on them, take their business away, and then sell it to somebody else that's bigger and make a huge profit on it. And you know how I know that happens? Because that's exactly what happened to me. So my passion in this structured success process is to ensure that never happens to somebody who's worked hard building their business with teams that they developed because they don't have the technical skill set or knowledge to avoid that situation. And we've done research in over 1,000 industries, and we're now looking at 25 specific industries, and we see this, I call it the devaluation curve or the abyss. You see this in all of those industries. And I've met with so many private equity groups, and they're actually on the hunt every day looking for those opportunities. And what they call them are bolt-ons. Bolt-on. So they buy something that's got mass, and they look for all these entrepreneurs that have made the wrong technical moves, who are fearful, who then raise capital. And then when they don't do the next round of growth, and if they do, great, but most times they don't, they can then sell them to an investment they've already got that is bigger, that has all the systems and tools and processes, so they can exponentially grow, and then they bolt on to an existing investment. The stumble that some entrepreneur had in their business, and they get crammed down on, and they lose a majority of the value that they set out to create or had at one point, and gave it away because they technically did not understand how to go through growth. There's 3 stages to growth: startup, scale, and scaling. And if you understand where you're at in those 3 stages, and you are in transaction, transition, and transformative mode, and you have all the right lenses, you can do it so much faster, so much more secure, and build so much more value. And unfortunately, they don't teach this stuff. It's complicated.
It's very complicated. No one's telling you how to do this. People, especially in the school system, you're taught the mechanics of it, but you're not taught the application of when the right type of financing should be used or the right type of debt should be used.
When is the right time to sell?
Right. Like the context around it isn't taught. The concept is. And so people know, but then you get in business and you're financially constrained, or you want to grow, and you have growth goals that you need to figure out how to fund and manage with your existing cash flow while making other investments. And then all of a sudden you find yourself trapped, which all of this is leading me into a place that I'd love to be able to close the podcast on. But in talking, I listened to your first episode, and I also happened to be there when you were recording your very first podcast episode. And one thing that I was very excited about to hear from you in your first episode, you said you set up this podcast series, this show, in a way where you're saying, I want to be real. I'm going to share with you real things, real experiences, real highs, real lows for me, and wrap concepts around those. And you've shared a lot of amazing concepts, and I know that even more of this is going to be in structured success. But in thinking about a real application of this, that's something that really touches you, what can you share with me and with your audience about structured success and the value around it wrapped in a story or an experience that really brings this all home for you?
That's a good question. I have so many stories.
I know you do.
There's a methodology. There's a way of thinking and a way of doing that can allow you, while you're trying to build something, do it so much more enlightening or more joyfully, and everyone gets to go on that ride. There's nothing more incredible than growth, controlled growth, intentional growth. What the total intention of structured success is to take all those business elements, all the authors and mentors over the last 15, 20 years I've had the privilege to work with, and distill it down to a thing that can create a huge impact, because you have a way of thinking and speaking and doing that's in total alignment with your team. Somebody has to own that domain in your business. And you simply need to ask yourself while you're hearing me talk is, who is the person I trust the most, who is the most intentional about creating that in our business, and how much have we been able to amplify that impact of what we're trying to do? And if you're honest with yourself, you're probably caught up in the doing what you're doing, and you're not caught up in who you're doing it with and making sure they're at their absolute best and representing you at the absolute best, and how you're doing it so people can learn to do it bigger, better, faster, so that you can accelerate your growth.
Can you give me an example from your own experience around this?
I mean, my business, I started it from scratch, brought Mason in, 25 calls a day, mastering every single phone call. Once you master those phone calls, you're going to listen to me. We're going to record every one of them. We're going to do 100 of them. After we do the 100, I'm going to role play with you at the end.
Maybe I have a better way of asking this question, because I want to go to a specific place. You're creating this course now. You're 50 years old. You've created courses in the past that served a specific need, and you felt compelled to create those at those times. At this time in your life and your professional goals, you're launching this course. Can you think back to a experience of failure in your career where, if you would have had this knowledge, like explain the failure and apply, if you would have had this knowledge, how you would have made a different decision that would have allowed you to propel forward even faster?
Yeah. So, you spend a lot of time talking about your successes. And while I had this unbelievable success, in the exact same moment, I literally pissed away $8 million trying to go into another industry and doing it. And what I learned is I did not follow my own fundamentals. And I could not onboard because I was trying to go straight from zero to scaling in an industry that had never really done that, didn't have the systems, didn't have the tools, didn't have the resources, too many technology choices, none of them aggregating into a single point of information, just so much complexity that I actually abandoned many of my own principles because I thought I knew better and I could make it work out at the end.
So you would have gone first to scale instead of creating scaling that you had achieved in another business, and you just thought you could skip over the scale part of the process.
I thought I could just adapt what I'd already built and move it into another vertical, and I abandoned the principles of the 25 calls a day, perfecting them every time, duplicating them 3 times over, taking the best person that's doing that, doing it again, and I went straight to hiring 50 people None of them understood how to work together. None of them understood the complexity of the businesses because it was a complex deliverable. And I did it in a marketplace that the laws kept changing how you can generate revenue and how you can share in the increased value. And so it ended up just being a complete disaster. But what it did do is it allowed me to step back and say, given the opportunity to do it again, because I am doing it again. In fact, we're researching 25 specific industries right now. The first thing I learned is understand exactly what allowed you to succeed the first time. So we built that funnel. Benchmark every single new opportunity against that to see if it matches to it and where there's deviations. Go to people where there's deviations and understand how to fix those before you pull the trigger in doing it. Then getting enough people who have done it together that can relate to what you're trying to do, and then bridge the delta between knowledge and no knowledge, or knowledge or
lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. And keep filtering until you find the thing that perfectly matches, and then ease into it by starting and then scale it. And then when you perfected the scale, go to massive growth, which is scaling, multiply and amplify it. Don't just plow through all three of those things with lack of knowledge because you think you're smarter than somebody else in the room. So it was a very humbling.
It was this funny position that you were in because you had just had this incredible success and you were methodical throughout the entire process of the company that you sold, and you still are. I mean, the way that you've navigated even the transition has been something that people should study for how to integrate with a new company. It's just you're talented at this. It's not by luck that this happened. However, at the same time that success was happening, you also experienced a professional failure within 6 or 8 months of this win. That it was funny timing.
Yeah, I'm shutting one company down and I'm selling the next for one of the highest valuations any company's ever been bought for.
And at the time, we made it probably seem more like, we just wanted to take things slow, to shut it down. It didn't make sense to have it anymore, which is all true. However,
but that's not how we handled it. We basically brought in 50 team members. We decided that we would only keep 25. We took our best 25. We told the 25, I gave everyone severances for every year you work for me. You got a month of severance. I paid more out to those employees than some of my employees that have been with me 5 or 10 years at Audigy, unfortunately, because I felt the obligation that I put them in a position where they couldn't succeed, and I wanted to make sure they were set up for success. Some appreciated that, some didn't appreciate it. We hired a lot of people out of school, so they don't even know what it's like to have a real job. And to be honest with you, most companies don't give severance for a month or two to someone who's worked for them for a year or two. So we handled it fairly, but we made the hard choice, we made the cut, and then we said to the 25 that stayed, we got to hunker down and make this work, right? We have to figure out how to make it work. And we just kept cutting when we couldn't figure out how to make it work, till where we cut everybody to where it didn't work at all. We just shut it down. Very painful.
I think that's what I would like to just get out of this is there are all of these concepts on all of these teachings, and it's not coming from this place of you figured this all out and you've never had
structured
failure.
Success is directly from the failure.
Yes. You would not be creating structured success if it wasn't for the failure and the understanding of what you did to succeed the first time and create a model and replicate a model that allowed you to do that.
What I learned is the complexity of my original model. And even in my leadership program, when I launched the new company, I could not drive the same level of success. I tried to take a team of people straight from transactional to transformative with no structure other than me just having knowledge and talking to them and showing them all these complicated leadership videos that take 15 months. So you don't have 15 months to go to scaling.
Especially when you're expecting them to be transformative tomorrow.
And you're hiring them out of school.
Yes.
So the whole thing, looking back on it, was ridiculous. What I learned from it, though, is if I would have had a better structure to find people, onboard them faster, make sure they understood with absolute clarity what we're moving to and why we're moving to it, and I had the business principles in place to validate that what I was trying to do could be done before I did it, right? Then we would have pick something that we could have succeeded in, which is what we're doing now. But without all that learning, it's the best $8 million of education that I think I've ever gotten. And what was born out of the pain associated and the self-reflection is I did it the wrong way, and I didn't do it the way we manage all the businesses that we manage that are growing at 3.5 to 15, 20 times X their peer groups. And I try to do it too fast. So the beautiful part of this is I went backwards and said, where did I make all those mistakes? What did I do right in the first business? What did I do in my third business, I should say? What did I do wrong in the fourth business? And what would I do differently going forward, which is exactly what I did when I second business sold and I started Audigy. I had very specific principles that I wanted to make sure that I abided by, which allowed us to be so successful. I abandoned those principles in the attempt to do something bigger, better, faster. And I taught myself that if you don't have the structure in place and you can't more quickly identify the opportunities and use the structure as filters to go through things, the speed in which you want to go to scaling can't happen.
Right.
And then going to all the authors and talking to them about it, I realized what I had done wrong. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to simplify this for other people, put it back into the market. And the beautiful thing is we still run the business that we sold, so we could go test these things with our business owners who are just killing it relative to their peer groups. And it works. It works so much better, which is why we launched it here to 250 independent business owners. And I want to give this gift to anybody who wants to do things with less risk in their pursuit of growth.
Well, thank you for having me on the B. Dawson Show. We have 5 minutes until we're supposed to be downstairs into another session with our wonderful owners. And I'm looking forward to hopefully hopping on the podcast in the future.
Yeah, thanks for hosting me.
You're
or
welcome.
Thanks for narrating or co-hosting or
whatever
whatever
this thing is.
It's always a joy.
All right.
Thank
Until next time, guys.
This is Brandon Dawson. Thank you for listening to the B. Dawson Show. Look forward to the next one next week.